is responsible for that? Does that fall under city clerk?
Yes,
It does, okay.
yes.
So I'm gonna ask some questions about
It's also reimbursed, as you probably are aware.
that. Does that? Your voice changed. Wow. My voice changed. Don't know. She's just using my kid. Yeah, but now you have to your voice up. Watch out, how exactly.
He's in Rumpy Guts anyway, usually. He likes you.
Yeah. See them downtown too.
Yeah, he's on Sunday. That's his social life.
All right. Good evening, everybody. The Common Council of the City of Plattsburgh, New York, City Operations Committee for November 13th, 2023 is about to begin. All right. So first we're going to do a calling of the roll. Councilor Gibbs. Here. Mayor Rosenfuss.
Here.
Councilor Bach has been excused tonight. All right. First order is approval of the minutes for October 10th, 2023. All have received copies of the minutes in their email. Motion by the mayor. Do we have a second?
Second.
By Councilor Gibbs. All in favor?
Aye.
Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Very good. That's passed. Okay. Next order is discussion from the city clerk of the city clerk monthly and year-to-date reports. We have all received these in our email already. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, then I think we can move ahead with the meeting. Next order is any public comment. Is there anybody that was just to make a statement on anything, any topic whatsoever? All right. Seeing none, we're going to move on to new business. Any new business for this committee? No?
Sorry, just real quick, there are some IT changes that we are looking to implement that specifically from the clerk's office for our email archiving. That should be coming, I believe that will be coming through to council at some point, those changes. Maybe? Very good.
I've never built that.
Okay.
That's always true.
Oh, that's also part of that
Yeah, it's divided
consolidated, yeah, okay, gotcha.
Okay, any other new business? All right, seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion. All right, very good. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Are we just moving on?
Yeah.
No.
I have nothing other than as we have been doing, presenting departmental budgets to essentially to the department or the committee that they generally report to. I know library and MLB don't. We're going to wait for an MLB meeting and library kind of packaged in somewhere. I believe that I'm going to also review the mayor's budget as well. Okay. Who y'all want to start with? Okay.
Sylvia wants to go first, so let's do that.
Sylvia, please.
So I don't think we're gonna go line by line, correct? Is that not-
No, okay, so city clerk starts on page 5 of our munis budget packet, but the municipal court, which is on page 4 of our munis packet, I just had a couple of questions about that. The 3,000 line, it says capital outlay, all the way over, we have a dollar amount for 2024, $11,280. But where it says percent change, it says 0% change, but it's clearly a change, so I can understand why it reads that way.
Looks like a munis calculation.
Sometimes those reports show zero and they shouldn't. Depends on which columns are being compared when you run them.
Well, so 22 and 23 both show a $0 amount. And then in 2024, we have a dollar amount that says 0% change.
It should be plus like 100%.
Oh, okay, so what is that then, the capital outlay for $11,250?
So the court actually establishes the budget, and then I just get the work. We review it, mayor signs off on it, I sign off on it. So they design projects. If it's something that is structural, which means it's gonna last more than 5 or 10 years, it's gonna be considered capital. They want, this year, so their budget is different than ours as well. They don't do a fiscal year, January 1st, December 3rd. So I have to carry some of that over. It's their fiscal year starts April 1st and March 31st. So their work has to end in March. So they give me a budget, it ends in March. What they did this year is they built in a huge project that will probably actually carry into the following year because it's got to go before the zoning board. So realistically, it's probably not going to get done, but there are some projects like the mini splits that are going to go under capital. It's, and then contracted services is everything else, like the cleaning, municipal cleaning of the building, the water, the garbage pickup.
It's a huge increase in contract services from,
Oh, sorry.
so in 23, the budget was $48,481, and so for 24, it's $128,908. It's an increase of 165%. So why the huge increase?
Well, part of it has to do with that project too.
Oh, okay.
So again, it's probably going to be built out, a portion of it will probably be built out in 2024. The remainder will probably run over into 2025.
I know this exists in this packet, I don't know where. Increase in fees? Is
No,
there-
I didn't have any.
Is there any,
We just did a recent increase in fees like the last year or so, last 2 years, so I didn't really feel it was.
so on page 2 of the munis report where it says licenses and permits, is any of this under your budget line?
And that's not an increase in fees,
I'm
per
just
se,
asking if there is
because
an
the fees went up.
Yeah.
And some people had already gotten their licenses last year before the fee was involved, so that's what the increase is for.
Okay. Other than that, I didn't have any other questions. Nobody else did.
For the clerk, any questions for the clerk? Yeah, just also a reminder, and I think I sent this out earlier as well, links to the original meetings that we had where each department head did go line by line in their budget to explain what was in their budget as well. We can refer back to that when we do these talks again. Thank you.
Thanks, Elise.
Sure, library? Oh, you're not gonna make Ben do it?
Pardon?
You're not gonna make Ben do it?
No,
I will if you want.
I was gonna introduce Ben. Ben is our children's librarian, and he's going to
Yes, sir.
take over as the director when I retire at the end of January.
Only because we meet.
Cool. And then, my administrative assistant Jamie Parrott has announced her retirement January 5th. And today I hired a person to come in and spend the month of December training with her as a second administrative assistant. And when Jamie leaves, this person will be up to leave. She has paralegal, HR, a lot of experience. So we're planning, and then we have a new librarian coming in that's gonna work with Ben for about 2 weeks in January to transition so that when Ben moves upstairs, this person is ready to take over downstairs. So we're doing a lot of HR things.
Where does the library begin on this munis report? Do you happen to know?
I didn't bring my copy.
It's the number 6 one. If you flip back, I think, like 35, 36, page 36. Sorry, yeah, page 36.
Yep, page 36. There it is.
Really, our budget doesn't really change year to year. Our biggest line is always payroll, benefits that go with payroll. We finally got the internet under control. I finally caught up with the federal E-rate program. So we got 16,000 this year, we'll get 25,000 next year. That's really paying about 80% of what our IT costs are. We just had trouble over the years of, we have to do that in January, February, and we didn't know what the new cost would be. So I think that's gonna be a big help. We just got to check the $307,000 for the next capital project. That's 90% funding from the state. It's about a $380,000 project, and our cost would be $38,000, so we can't beat that.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So otherwise, I don't think there's a lot of change from past years. If you have specific questions I can answer, I'd be happy to.
No, I didn't have any specific questions.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll just note a couple of highlights, obviously, welcoming Mr. Ben on as the new library director. That's very exciting. Typically, when we do library rec complex parking, we have a local share under 6228, 2810 line. It's the general fund local share. This year, we budgeted, we're allocating $756,539 to that local share compared to the 5-year average, which was just 740,000. Last year, it was budgeted at 770,000. So looking at this year, it is coming in about $10,000 less than it did last year. That local share, probably attributed to Ann's work in managing the budget, keeping expenses low. So a little bit of a savings on this side of the house, but overall. Well done.
And any savings we can realize at the end of the year with the city's contribution or private donations, we roll into either our capital fund or our reserve fund. And the capital fund, we have to attest that we actually have 50% of that request from the state to do construction. So we need to keep a good chunk of the money in there to say we can attest to that, even though now, because of the poverty rate, we're getting a 90% reimbursement. Anything else?
How often does that change the poverty rate that they?
Every year.
They do that every year?
It's at 24.5% maybe for the city right now, and I think we're the only library in the Tri-County system that gets that high of an allocation. So it's, it's a win-lose, but it's good for us right now.
Yeah, just one reminder for everyone, I know this came up a few years ago. We need to keep the funding sort of stable with the library because there's a formula that the state has if they drop below a certain amount. So, and I know you didn't really fully understand that at the time, but I do now. Like, you can't drop it down, say we'll save money this year, next year we'll boost it back up, and we'll use funding for that. So you need to be really stable.
Something I wasn't aware of is that they include not only the city's allocation, but also the budget line repairs to buildings. They add that as well. So if we spent $100,000 for repairs to buildings, if you don't, we use a capital outlay line instead, which is not included. That will trigger this maintenance of effort. So it's over a 3-year period, any deviation, a drop of more than 5%. The state feels that municipal funding is important. It's the first line of funding for libraries. And if that does happen, the state then will cut us 25%. So we lose another $25,000 from the state. So it's a fine line, but thank you, Jeff, for bringing that up. It is what it is.
I know one time it came up, we didn't know that. We almost got ourselves in that.
We did. We got down to 713. All righty, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, MLB?
Good evening. MLD budget pretty much follows last year's budget with some minor changes. I pretty much went over it the last time. I guess it's basically any questions.
On page 40 of the munis report, it says interest revenues, and there's an account number 2401. What is that? It says BK interest.
Bank interest.
Oh, bank interest.
Yes,
So our bank interest is going up significantly, or
Yeah.
yes,
why is that?
because the Fed is raising its interest rates down to 0. We're in net 6% or something like that.
5.27. Whereas last
And
year.
of course, the banks didn't raise the interest.
Last year at this time, we were at 0.2. Well, earlier in the year last year. So that's how much it's changed.
What do you do with that money, bank interest? I mean, how is that, like- No, I'm asking.
It's part of our revenue.
Spend it.
Great question.
Just regular revenue, counts as regular revenue, it's not, okay.
It's an expense on any projects or anything that we have to do.
Part of the estimate, but, the surplus that we earn on the interest stays in the bank and continues to earn.
Okay.
And it's different than the housing revolving loan fund we have in CD, where that's federal funding. If we don't have it lent out, we have to pay them, the Fed, the surplus interest we have earned on that cash. That is under $100,000 this year.
Get that money
Right.
on out. Get that money on there.
Yeah. But yeah, the interest is up significantly.
I don't think I had any other questions, that was just something that stuck out for me.
Yeah, it's quite a jump from the previous
Yeah, I
year.
just didn't know what the BK, what that stood for, so when
You'll
I
see,
saw a huge leap, I didn't know what that meant.
you'll see that interest earnings in all the funds is down dramatically. They're all estimated to be really high for 2024. Because rates aren't really predicted to go down anytime too soon. Maybe by this time next year.
I didn't have any other questions,
Okay.
Bill. I don't know about other counselors do, but I didn't.
As a county.
Nothing at all.
As a town. That's the board.
Just hoping they don't continue to raise up all our fees and rates. That's coming up, what, another year or so?
What do
The
you need?
electricity rates. I know the Rex and Zex have gone up.
Oh, those are continuously raising.
Oh, hey, you gotta make sure you got electricity down in your city.
Well, it's all over the state. I mean, we want to replace, all fossil fuel generation with, all electric generation with wind farms and solar. So they estimate they're gonna need about 130 gigawatts of power to do that. And plus change all the heating systems over to electric throughout the state, and the whole transportation sector becomes electric. They only have 37 gigawatts of generation at the moment. They have to get another 100 gigawatts roughly in the next 15 years.
Not likely.
Well, in the last 20 years, they added only about 5 gigawatts. So they got a long way to go.
Don't hold your breath.
Who knows? We'll have to see. They did, the legislature realized that problem the last budget, and they tagged the New York Power Authority to start building all the solar and wind that they're gonna need to make up the difference. The question remains, where are they getting all the funds from? Good guess would be the ratepayers. How that's gonna come about, I have no idea. But the meeting was a few weeks ago, The word was, over the next 10 years, electric rates are going up in the state.
Yeah, we don't notice that as much as people in other places right now. I know when I moved here from NICEAG country,
Yeah, goes down. I mean, down in New York City, Con Ed, residential's approaching 30 cents a kilowatt hour. Here it's a little under 5 cents a kilowatt hour.
How long is that contract?
That contract was just renewed. It is good to 2040.
I'm first of all, not fortune teller, but I don't see us maintaining that rate for forever.
No, the last time we applied for electric rates, were approved by the Public Service Commission, was January 1st, 2010. My guess, within the next year or two, we're going to have to go back, get a rate increase.
I mean, like even the rate that, even the cost that we buy at, because there's such a high demand for renewable, I don't see us giving it. I just don't see us getting away with getting cheaper power than what we got now. It'll likely increase.
No, I think we have the cheapest power right now in New York State.
Sure.
so far.
But after this contract expires,
Well, a lot of it also applies to federal laws, preference power. There's other rules that they have to, New York Power Authority has to follow. So, yeah, it will probably go up. They have raised over the 20 years I've been here, they have raised, not the energy charge, that has stayed the same, 30, 40 years now. The demand charge has gone up over the years. It's still low compared to other utilities. So right now, though a lot of people in Plattsburgh think their electricity is outrageous, they need to go to other parts of the state to see what they're paying. I think they'd have a shock, literally.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
thank you. Anything else for that?
thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Everyone? Courtney, you don't have anything for tonight, do you? Courtney?
Mayor's office. I'm just part of, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for anyone.
Provided to council, an overall, increase to the mayor's budget, to the mayor's office budget of about $1,000, compared to the 2023 revised. Pretty much the same. The bigger change that I would like to point out is a potential increase to the stipend for counselors by $850. As we did last year, we allocated a small, modest amount of funding for council projects. I know we spent some monies on that for the Climate Smart Task Force, as well as some initial needs assessment based on some council requests. Overall payroll is pretty much the same. Let's see if anything big jumps out. Slight increase to the publicity budget, considering the contingency fund is pretty much on average. The corporation council doesn't change.
I went down.
Corporation council went down?
Yeah.
Oh, because of special contracted legal fees. Yeah, we don't expect to have many of those this year, so.
Well, I would like to say that we are the lowest paid board, I think, of any seated board in the county. That is a fact. And I think somebody put this in the budget for a request last year and it didn't go through, but.
Council gotta do.
And I support that. I think that $10,000 for a year for what we do is not enough. And Joe DeTemplio did an editorial on this months and months and months ago, just comparing salaries between, I think for him, I think he did the thing on county legislature. It might have been town council and then another governing board, but we weren't even mentioned at all. But $10,000 a year is not enough money for what we do. I think city council should have a pay raise. That's what I think.
We haven't had a pay raise for the 4 terms that I served,
It's my 5th year and we've never had a pay raise, and I
13 years.
county legislature gave themselves a raise a couple years ago, didn't even make big waves. So I don't know how the rest of this council feels, but I am a strong advocate for a pay raise because I think that we are very, very underpaid. We work very hard. We do good work, and in comparison to other governing boards, like I said, we're very underpaid. I appreciate the modest increase, but I don't think it's enough. I think that we should go to at least somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 per year. That's just my opinion. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but
The money that we're probably going to save in contracted services, which we hardly ever use, could go toward that. So, you know, we should be able to find enough money.
Well, I would think, 12,000 would be a good starting point. I don't know how everybody else feels, but
I agree.
I would think that would be more than fair.
I'm not gonna be here next term, so I don't have any vested interest in this at all, but I think 15,000. That doesn't really bring us all that close to the other governing bodies here. We work hard,
We do.
as you know, we do, so. We take our position very seriously.
I'm certainly grateful to get what we do get now, but it is a different time to be on council. We have to deal with, people constantly attacking us on social media and just phone calls, emails, it's definitely a different time, so I can see why, people would go for an increase.
I can remember when I was approached to run for this position by a friend of mine, and I said, I'm not really sure. And he goes, Elizabeth, it's not that much work. You just show up for a couple of hours
Yeah,
for a meeting. And I
Yeah, I
go,
think the meeting is the only thing we do.
and I said, really? He goes, that's really not what you think it is. I'm like, okay. It's not just that at all. There's a lot to do and a lot to know. And I like Councilor Kelly's suggestion. 15,000 makes me happy.
Well, that's an increase, $30,000 a year, that payroll budget, so I think we'd have to find the money somewhere else. Should be able to do that.
It's about 30,000 increase, that would need, just math real quick. It would require adjustments elsewhere, for about 25,000.
Well, being a short timer myself, I kind of agree with Mike. We're not doing this for ourselves, so, going forward.
Sorry. You bring up a good point, because I think any changes to, elected pay doesn't kick in into the next election cycle.
Right.
So.
So,
Yeah, I agree. And we want people to want to serve. When I talk to others in the community, that, one of the very first things that they say, you can't possibly be making enough money to compensate for the work you're doing. And I just kind of chuckle, but we should be fairly compensating the people who sit here. And like you said, next year's our last year on council. It isn't really about us. We've got new councilors coming on, and we want to be able to recruit people.
Oh, you know what, to that point, it would only affect it would only be $10,000 increase. unless we did it, again, unless we did the same exercise next year in next year's budget, and then it would follow suit the 2 years after. Does that make sense? It wouldn't be a $30,000 increase, it'd be a $10,000 increase for this budget cycle. Because it only affects 2 counselors coming in right now. It only affects wards 2 and ward 1 coming into this budget cycle. 2024, it would affect whoever's up in that election. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
No, so you're saying that the budget or pay increase would not happen while we are in office?
It wouldn't happen for
Not
any,
this budget cycle.
yeah, sorry. It wouldn't happen for any counselor except for those coming on January 1st.
I don't think it would be even that. I think another election has to happen before it actually kicks in. I don't think it would affect,
So it would only be for the 2025 budget?
yes, correct. Because an election cycle has to occur before anybody gets it. It can't be, I guess it's so that you can't vote yourself or he's
Yes.
the president.
Okay, let me
So it would affect the incoming counselors for 24?
That's what I'm assuming that it would affect incoming. I'll have to double check.
I think so.
I believe it's in the charter as well. I'll let
It might be in the
Dee
charter.
I'll let Dee take a look as well, but to the point, my point being is that if it does affect those incoming counselors, the only change to the budget is a $10,000 increase, which
I got
those 2 counselors would be
Okay.
affected. Everybody else would stay at the same pay rate until your election cycle came back through.
And then they would get a raise. I
Correct.
think that we should do that.
2025 would be a $20,000.
It would be 20,000 this year, 20,000 2025, 20,000 2026, and that would be that.
Then it would be 30,000.
The payroll one.
No, 10 in 2024, it'd be 10 in 2025.
Yeah.
And it's 30 in 2026. Because everybody at that point.
Everybody at that point, at the end of 2026, it would be a total combined increase of $30,000. Yes. But next year is only 10. So looking at the math, it really is not 30,000 increase with having to make up a $26,000 gap. And again, just understand I've got to confirm all this with the, just to keep it taking a look at the charter.
Well, I'm completely on board with that.
So I'll take a look at, just real quick here. I mean, obviously, there's some, I don't wanna call that concern, but obviously you've got then 2 counselors that are making some $5,000 more than the other 4 counselors. Until everybody kinda gets caught up.
Yeah.
Unless the charter says otherwise, which, again, I'll have to go back and agree.
Okay.
With that, assuming the $10,000, I already gave you the original number for the $30,000 increase, to council pay. With a $10,000 increase, it's a $5,000 budget deficit to make up, which is manageable. I would even recommend that amount can be taken from the mayor's contingency line, which, if I tell you now, it would be, the mayor's contingency line would go, which, by the way, we put to good use. It would go from 126 to 121.
What line is that on your budget?
That's 11994430.
Oh, contract service.
Yes, correct. So contingency contract service.
Well, I see that you've reduced your contract service by a significant amount.
Correct. Mostly because we have not needed it, and also, if you recall, part of that contract services was to make up the difference for retroactive pay during contract contract negotiations. Are there any questions about the mayor's office? Mayor's office budget?
You're doing a good job, Mayor.
So-
Managing your budget
Thank
quite
you,
well.
Lois. I appreciate that.
So I don't have the payroll report in front of me, but is the city planner's payroll under your 1,100 line?
The city planner, the senior planner's budget is, the senior planner and the community engagement coordinator is currently budgeted under the mayor's office, yes. I can't make a promise that it's gonna remain that way. I think that it would be, a long-term benefit to not have management staff and other, managerial staff, I guess, or mayoral appointments working in the mayor's office. It'd be more ideal to keep it separate, but for right now, that's where it's landed. We are looking at replacing Courtney's position, the vacancy that was currently, or that's currently, there due to Courtney's promotion. Congratulations again. But we are looking at replacing that, and filling that position, before the end of the year, ideally. That's it's budgeted, so it's ideal that we do get that done before the end of the year. Okay. Any other questions about payroll or payroll numbers? I know Counselor Gibbs, you had sent some questions along. I hope I was able to answer those.
Yes, what I'm trying to do is understand the payroll per department. Some of them are easy to understand, others are not. So, I still have some things that I'm reviewing on that.
And you
and
have,
so
yeah, sorry to interrupt.
if I have any other questions, I'll let you know, or I'll just bring them up at a council
Okay.
meeting.
You do have, you have what have I sent you for that payroll?
You sent us I don't know, it's like a 10-ish page document that breaks down, the payroll of every employee per department. And then my question to you by email was, some of those are in bold print, and I
Yes.
didn't understand what
Yeah.
that was, and then you responded.
Yep.
So I haven't had time to go back through and take
Okay.
a look at some of the departments I had some questions with. But I'll send those along if I have
There.
other questions.
Okay, perfect. Because I do have a summary of where all of those payroll lines are going, which includes 1,100, 1,300, and 1,400 lines. I will, I'll download that and send that as well. That may help answer some of those questions. I thought that was included in what I sent. It looks familiar. I'm almost certain I sent this, but if I didn't, excuse the oversight. Just bear with me for a moment. And of course, if y'all are looking through this and have additional questions, just please let us know.
I do have some questions. Maybe this is a question for Richard, I'm not really sure. On the munis budget, page 2. Page 2, the category says use of money and property.
Yeah.
And it's 11/24/2401, INT-TEMP. Is that again one of those examples of interest that we're getting, or? Can't be, 'cause it's under, it's under,
412,380,
it says use of money and,
412,380.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's interest for next year.
That is interest. That's another one of those interests. Forget
Across all funds,
it. Okay.
the interest earnings on the surplus cash is up dramatically from last year.
Okay.
2022, that is, and it's even going to be higher next year than 2023 because we didn't run the whole year at 5.27% this year. We only started going up into, I'd say 5% range within the last 3 months. But it's gradually gone up from 0.2% is what we were earning in 2022. So it's a big change on savings.
And is that line of, is it a 2401 account number? Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's the object number.
Okay, thank you. I saw that huge increase. I didn't understand it at all.
Yeah, same with NLDs. You'll see it in every fund.
Okay,
Library fund has it too.
that helps. Thank you.
The only funds that aren't going to show that are the ones that, normally run negative cash, like parking and rec complex.
Under licenses and permits, 2556, BLDGINSP, I'm assuming that means building inspector?
Yes.
Is that the same thing?
No,
No, okay. So
That's-
it's a 2556 number.
What page?
that's the
This is
rental,
page 2.
that's the rental registry fees.
Yep.
Jumping up for next year.
So we anticipate that we're gonna bring in $514,000 in rental registry.
In total, so this is also the renewed ones that have already been paid, as well as the increases, the recommended increases to include singles and duplexes, which are not currently included. So every 3 years is a renewal, that's this year. We anticipate those folks paying, there's a percentage that Joe applies to the total number. I think it's like 90% will pay in full, 10% will not. 10% will take the 3-year option, something like this. But it also includes adding singles in onto that list. Which again, I think I sent memo on this outlining the increase of rental registry, which is pretty standard if we're gonna have rental registry. It's pretty standard to include those units in that registry.
And the plan is to hire another person.
Correct,
Do this.
to offset the workload of adding, according to Joe, his assessment is that there's a similar number of 1 and 2 units as there are 3+ units in the city. So we are looking at adding 1 additional person to help support.
We added one person to do the rental registry
Correct.
initially.
Correct.
So Richard, on, it says page 20 of the beginning part of this Munis report, which I don't really know how to explain it because it's like 20-something pages and then the Munis report starts all over again, page 1. So in the beginning of this document, it's called Exhibit H, Draft Debt Amortization by Funds, and it's 2 pages long.
Yeah, I didn't get that package. I don't know. Oh, you've got it? Oh, you got that? So what page are you on?
Well, it says,
Page 19 and 21, 19 and 20. The amortization schedule for debt.
Okay. What is your question?
so on the report, it says 2022 ban, it's in bold print, 16 million approximately at 3.5%. What is that supposed to be telling me?
It's on page 20, second section up from the bottom, right?
Yeah, but we didn't borrow 16 million in 2022.
So what does that mean?
We borrowed 11,857,000 in 2022. We're paying that back this Friday. We borrowed another 19,250,000 coming in Thursday. So the 22 grand was only 11,857,000. This might have been an estimate of what we were going to borrow last year, but I'm not sure where these numbers are coming from. So That shouldn't be 16 million, that should be 11,857,000.
11,857,000.
And the interest we're paying on that is 563,000. That happens this Friday.
How much, I'm sorry?
563,000.
Was this another van we're buying, or?
That was the van we bought last year in November.
Mhm.
Where we already bought one. We sold one November 2nd and we closed on it on Thursday. We'll get the 19,250,000 in plus, I can't remember the premium, 54,000, I believe.
And that's another
And
van.
we're using those proceeds, obviously, to pay off the van from last year, which is 12,420,000, principal and interest. So we have new money of 8,084,000 coming in for a capital project.
So when we were talking about the financing for the Market Street project, and there was a financial plan that there would be a certain amount of that would be in a ban until 2025. I don't remember the exact dollar amount. We said we were going to put that in a bond anticipation note until 2025, hoping that the rates would come down.
Yeah, they're probably gonna come down next year.
How much is that? How much is,
4.2 million.
4.2 million?
Yeah, between the water fund and the general fund.
But that's in a bond anticipation note that we're putting out there until 2025, is how I understood.
We're putting it out there this year. That's part of the 19.
So we are going to be putting it.
It's part of 19,250,000 we're borrowing this Thursday. And it's coming just in time because we're paying for Market Street and we owe about $4 million to the project. We've advanced from other funds.
Right.
So it's perfect timing.
So the 4.2 million is part of that 19 million, okay?
It's part of the new 8,084,000 of new money. That Market Street was the project that we started just this year. We've got 3 years worth of projects in that 19,250,000 figure. Hopefully the interest rates will drop enough by this time next year to put it in a serial bond issue. Our bond agent's thinking it might be down around 3.5, 3.25 by this time next year, because the Fed is talking about, another increase, but they're also forecasting next year to ratchet things back down again. That's the predictions. So, but if they don't come down, we can roll a van forward again next year.
The spreadsheet, so that part that we're looking at, it's the same part that I was just talking about.
Yep.
Didn't really understand the way the math worked out on the bottom. So the first column, on the very, very bottom, it says total debt service. $2,084,748.67. That's general fund.
Yep.
And then rec complex.
That went down in 2023. I think it was 2,054,000 finalized that, but anyway, go ahead.
And then the next, I see you've got columns, I understand that part.
Yep.
When we get over to the total column versus $3,616,471.40.
Right.
What does that total represent?
That's all the principal and interest that we're paying on all of the debt for the government funds. It doesn't include NLD.
Does not include NLD.
No.
Well, I knew that part because I could see
Yeah.
that was its own column, but
Yeah.
does that 336,16,471, is that everything on that line totaled over?
Yep. And you see that there's 4 accounts that we carry the funding in. There's principal and interest that is funded by all of the government funds. You can see those 2 numbers above the total.
Yep.
And you also see the principal reserve and the interest reserve. And you see that's what's coming out of the debt service reserve, where we've established cash to pay against these particular serial bond issues for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. We just moved $1.1 million in there, like I said last week, with that debt service budget adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And that $1.1 million is going to be, factored in over the next 5, 6, 7 years of paying off these debt instruments, because it was surplus funding for each one of these serial bond issues to a certain amount. So that's back in the reserve. I think that reserve's up to $1.8 million. Part of it is funding for these particular projects, and the other part of it is the one in the middle of the page here. Excuse me, third one down. I think we still have about $500,000 left in environmental facility bond reserve to pay off the EFC funding that we put in place for the AD landfill. We put those bonds out in 2012. Actually, New York State did that on our behalf, and we're paying them the principal, plus we get a discounted interest rate on that by going to EFC. They cut the interest in half for us. So, but yeah, you see that all the funding for the debt comes from the individual funds, except for the amount that we've applied into the reserve to be used ratably over the next so many years. Each bond is out there for using the reserve.
So when we get the cash report every week, that's just forwarded the most recent one to us.
Yeah.
And I was taking a look at that again today. The very top line of that spreadsheet that you gave us is
General fund cash.
general fund cash.
And rec complex, parking,
Yes.
water, sewer, library, and then the bottom one in that first section is the debt service.
That cash fund dollar amount on the top column, is there any American Rescue money still part of that
Yes.
total? How much of unspent American Rescue money is still in that general fund account?
About $1.6 million.
1,000,006.
Roughly. I think we've spent about 300 and some thousand on the crate demo, and we're up to about 60,000-70,000 on the parks. But don't quote me on those numbers, that's a little more for you.
Okay, so we have roughly 1,000,006.
Yeah.
That's still part of that dollar total that we get.
Right,
Okay.
but
that's what I wanted to know.
it's earmarked already as the funding source for the parks, and it's all gonna be used up on the improvements of the parks and the crate demolition.
Okay. I think those are
So,
all.
so Richard, how long is the term gonna be? Are you boring this all under one bond? Money that you're gonna, the 19.2 million that you're gonna,
It's one instrument, it's just for a year. It matures November 15th, 2024. 4.75%, we get a discount of 4.13.
okay, so we already have this money coming in from somewhere.
That's coming in from
Yeah, I know it's different.
Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer bought the bonds. We had four companies bid, and they're big ones, and they like our paper because we're a good risk. They paid a $54,000 premium to buy the rate down to 4.13% from 4.75. But we're going to pay interest at the rate of 4.75 on that $19,250,000 this time next year, and we'll reduce that by that premium. We'll pull that out of the reserve and apply that to the interest for next year. So it's one bond. It's called a BAN, a bond anticipation note. It's there for 1 year, and Oppenheimer got it at 4.75% face value.
How much again?
Now they might,
What percent again?
4.75. But they bought it down to 4.13 by paying us a premium because that, you know, the bidding goes like that so they can get the paper and then turn around and sell it in the secondary market.
And they make money.
It's all about making money.
Indeed it is.
So,
Okay, I think you actually answered all the questions that I had,
good.
so far anyway. Well, you know how this is, every time you go over it, you think you got it, and then you go over it, you see more stuff, like, oh, wait, gotta ask
There's
another question.
tons of information. on
Yeah.
it. The biggest part of it to keep in mind is that there's the government funds and then there's MLD.
Right.
The government funds are all funding the debt that you see, 3.6 million. But those numbers have changed. I think I've revised the debt service budget for this year 7 times.
Okay.
So,
Thanks, Richard, that was really helpful.
You're welcome. And what we talked about last week.
Yep.
For the phone service, we did apply 36,000 only.
Yes.
From what Matt said we would do for the reduction, which happened actually in the month of October. It was finalized for the Google training.
Yes.
And service support.
Yep.
There's another 55,000 we can
Yes.
apply for next year, depending on if we want to do it for the budget now, or we want to wait on that.
We don't, the only problem is it's anticipated, but we don't know when that's going to kick in.
I thought you said January 1st.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to talk to Courtney and Matt because they're coordinating. The whole premise behind that savings is moving away from those physical servers to the cloud. So there's gonna have to be some management of that departmentally.
I'll send you his email. It
Okay.
said that he's got a new server called a Dado or something like that.
Yeah, that's a backup server, yes.
And he says that's gonna support the 2 servers that are gonna be left out of the whole bundle that we have locally.
Yep.
And so that 55,000 can start as a reduction January 1st. At
Okay.
least that's what the email said, so I'll send it to you.
Let me talk to him because it's also, the reduction is also predicated on how quickly we can move departments and train department staff over to using Google for shared storage. That's the caveat, which is why we're not trying to like press upon staff right now because of it. It's a significant change.
Right.
So, but I will get back with Matt to review.
So the reduction in the phone accounts that we saw from the first pass to the second pass, your budget was just the 36,000.
Correct. Which I believe we included that before the mayor's budget got released.
Yes.
Yes.
We took that out.
And
That's why the accounts I had went down from 8285 and
Yep.
8500 or 8250 down to 76 and 7500.
Yeah, okay.
We allocated it across all funds.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Have a good night.
If there's nothing else, we'll wrap it up, go home.